Forgery 1. Application for search warrant. The first step in obtaining a search warrant is filing an application with a federal magistrate. The application uses a standard form called an AO 106. Every few years they update the form, and there's a revision code. This one is from July 1987. This search warrant application was filed on June 27, 2011, 24 years after this form entered use. In it, a special agent swears under oath to a judge that it's correct, and the judge signs to confirm he swore him in. This application is a forgery. The July 87 version of this form is not much of a standard at all. Each of these applications is a valid July 87. As you can see, no two are alike. Newer versions of the AO 106, such as the April 2010, keep to a better, more consistent standard. This particular application's form has unusual features. Instead of application and affidavit for search warrant, we see for search warrant, application and affidavit. Normally, when a magistrate signs a form but notices something squiffy, they'll mark and initial it as seen in this application. None of this so far, despite it being unusual, indicates a forgery. Most AO 106s use a serif font, like Times New Roman, where letters have ornament and are decorated. This AO 106 does not use a serif font for the form portion. It uses something sans serif, like Arial, instead, but does use a serif font for the parts filled in. This is kind of backwards for how most forms are done. The 4 blanks on the bottom have been copy-pasted, signature already filled in, from a different search warrant application that this magistrate actually signed. These 4 blanks, the form portion, is serif. Nearly every AO 106, particularly newer revisions, uses serif for these blanks, but the rest of this form uses sans serif for the form portions. Looking at the left edge of the copy-pasted portion, a curious typo in the form itself exists. It's supposed to say, "sworn to before me," with a capital S. Instead, it says, "worn to before me," with a lowercase w. Note the left edge of the blanks lines up with the left edge of the rest of the form, and the W. The hanging S is an unusual characteristic on an AO 106, but there are examples of it. Note the margin, which is space between the left edge of the paper and the left edge of the form. This is a 1/2 inch margin, which is also unusual on AO 106 forms. Most desktop printers are physically incapable of printing all the way up to the left edge of a page. When you go to print a document that encroaches on this margin, you will get an error message. When you tell it to proceed anyway, this area is clipped and blanked on the printout. This is what happened to the copied S. We can tell it was the printing outside the print area and not the final scan because of the 2 written here. Let's turn our attention to the signatures. By law, both signatures should be signed at close to the same time, with the agent's done first. Let's examine the agent's signature first. Note the form does not use the same font to say signature of affiant as the areas beneath. As we zoom in on the agent's signature, it appears to have come from a pen. The lines are thick, continuous, and solid. Looking at other examples within this case, this appears to be consistent with the agent's other signatures. Looking at other examples within other cases, this also appears to be consistent. As we zoom in on the magistrate's signature, it appears to have come from a copier, not a pen. The lines are thin, broken, and do not seem consistent with an original signature. Looking at other examples within this case, this does appear to be consistent with the magistrate's other signatures. However, looking at numerous other examples outside this case, we can see what the magistrate's real signatures look like. This is not a cherry-picked set of genuine signatures. No examples were found outside this case in the months before or after of this signature looking peaked on any application but this one. The law says the pen signature has to occur before the peaked signature. This did not happen in this order. Forgery 2, affidavit for search warrant. The second step in obtaining a search warrant is a multi-page summary of why the search warrant is being sought, called an affidavit. Affidavits, unlike the other documents, do not use a templated form like the AO 106. The affidavit we're looking at is 36 pages plus attachments. Remember the number 36. The signature block at the end of the affidavit on the last page serves the same purpose as the application's signature block. The affidavit left with the homeowner the day after this was filed used this page 36. It is not signed and uses the wrong date, but otherwise appears correct and consistent. The version that had been filed the night before used a different page 36. This one is signed, and this one does reflect the date it was filed. However, the page number says 38, and 2 lines of information at the top are missing from the homeowner copy of 36. These match the last 2 lines of page 35, and both page 35s are the same. The font size and margins are slightly different between the 2 page 36s. None of this so far, despite being unusual again, indicates a forgery. However, this page is a forgery. As you'll remember, the same signature discrepancy in the application exists here. The agent's signature is thick, continuous, solid, and consistent with known genuine versions. The magistrate's signature is peaked and inconsistent with known genuine versions. The law says the pen signature has to occur before the peaked signature. This did not happen in this order. Forgery 3, search warrant. Search warrants come on a standard form called an AO 93 instead of an AO 106. This warrant uses a then current December 09 revision. In addition to presenting application and affidavit to the magistrate, the actual warrant has already filled in these blanks, but includes these blanks to be filled in by the magistrate. These include the deadline for serving the warrant, the date and time the warrant was issued, the magistrate's signature only, not the agent's, city and state, and printed name and title. Like this case's application, this AO 93 search warrant template uses unusual half-inch margins. Most AO 93 search warrants have 3/4 inch margins. This page is a forgery. Only this time, the copy-pasted 4 signatures come from the same revision of the AO 93, the December 09. However, the copy-pasted 4 signatures come from a 3/4 inch margin AO 93, not the half on this page. The effect is subtle at first, but unmistakable upon closer examination. This gap is supposed to be 0.05 inches taller than it is. When comparing the forgery with another AO 93 and switching between them, the combined effect of the minuscule difference between the size of text on a 3/4 margin sheet and a half margin sheet is concentrated right at this gap. As you'll recall, magistrates take their jobs seriously. This particular magistrate has been signing these for 8 years, since 2003, has a reputation for military efficiency, and is far less likely than most magistrates to have an oopsie. Compare the deadline on this search warrant with other deadlines written by the same magistrate. Out of over 100 warrants, I have not found a single one to omit the year, except this one. Compare the date and time on this search warrant with other dates and times written by the same magistrate. Out of over 100 warrants, I have not found a single one to omit the time, except this one. And as you no doubt know by now, let's look at the signature. You know which conclusion to reach. Conclusions. This is unequivocal proof positive that forgeries took place here, and an illegal search and seizure took place in America by the very people we trust to uphold the law. Magistrates are not rubber stamps. If they don't agree with the theory of a criminal investigation, they won't sign the search warrant. I believe this magistrate refused to sign this search warrant. I believe the FBI agent and federal prosecutor conspired to forge his signatures anyway. Who else could it have been? I believe they did a lot more to railroad me and my wife as part of their corrupt alliance with OfficeMax, now part of Office Depot. Yeah, the big box store. Office Max extorted me right before all this happened. Pay them money, they said, or they'd go to the FBI. When the extortionist emailed the FBI agent that he'd extorted me directly, the FBI agent emailed the prosecutor saying he couldn't believe the extortionist did that without going to him first. The FBI agent worked subordinate to Office Max. I have dozens of emails between them, and there's little doubt as to who's boss. I have partial proof the prosecutor pulled a similar forgery with the grand jury to come up with an indictment against us 2 years later. This is the grand jury transcript. It's supposed to be blacked out in spots to protect the identities of the grand jurors. But funny thing, the blackout gets to be several pages long as soon as they start pushing back. Guess who did the blacking out? And this is the signature of the grand jury foreman. This is what a good grand jury signature is supposed to look like. This is your tax dollars, people. Because of these forgeries, the government spent over $1 million of your tax dollars making my life and my family's life a living hell for the past 12 years. Because of these forgeries, 17 FBI agents in SWAT gear stormed my house the next day, pulled my half-naked wife out of the house without showing the unsigned warrant, pointed M4 assault rifles at her as they jammed their hands in her panties, in front of God and all the neighbors. Then dragged her into the backyard and extracted a confession out of her. I wasn't home. I couldn't protect my wife. We just got married. Albuquerque used to be a relatively safe place. We have hundreds of feds wasting your tax dollars on stupid shit like this. And when was the last time they busted, the FBI busted, any real criminals in New Mexico? Because of these forgeries, I got sent to prison for over a year, where I had to work as a slave. Serious. Because of these forgeries, I have a life sentence of having a ruined reputation. I would have gotten less for a ton of marijuana or murdering a child. That's the message I'm being sent. My wife and I would have loved to have had a second child, but that's never going to happen because of this. I can't own a gun, ever. I can't even touch a bullet, ever, or I go back to prison. Well-regulated militia? My ass. Hearing someone complain about their Second Amendment rights to me is like someone complaining about their foot itching to a quadriplegic. Because of these forgeries, my wife and I have to pay Office Depot $100 grand and the FBI slush fund $100 grand. After Office Depot made many times that from the cartridges I traded them in good faith. And now they've given their extortionist a promotion. Dear viewer, I have a question to ask you. What's the difference between the United States of America and some 2-bit third world banana republic? You don't know, do you? Well, I don't know either. And that's my point. I haven't exactly kept this to myself. I've screamed at the top of my lungs to every judge at the federal district and circuit levels and the Supreme Court. Nobody wants to take their thumbs out of their asses. Every step of the way, arguing against me before the courts. Guess who? You see, they really like this prosecutor. And she and they are above the law. I've tried to get news agencies involved. Crickets. Yeah, I'm mad as hell. You can download mirrors of the official documents from my website, dirtyprosecutor.org. It also has the links to the official documents on the government website, at least until they pull them. I encourage you to save a copy of this whole video before someone makes YouTube take it down. Please, if you're a media person, call or email me. I'll give an interview to anybody. I'd love a warm introduction to the Institute for Justice. And if you have an in with a non-corrupt politician who can look into this before they take this down, please do. I don't trust judges anymore. I have zero confidence in them. I hate to ask, but my family and I need money. I've set up a GoFundMe. If you can give me $100 or more, check out these shirts, inspired by my life experiences. They're not available in stores, and one in your size is my way of saying thank you for helping us out. If you can give me $500 or more, check out this book, Fat Gas, all about indoor carbon dioxide and how it impacts your life. 832 pages. I spent 2 years writing it. You can read the first few chapters online at fatgas.com. It'll never be on Kindle, at least legally, and I'm destroying all digital copies of it after I print just 1,000 hardbacks. One last thing. Joe, it's time you pardoned my wife and me. So long.